Alright, hello everybody, this is S'tayarr Ereth again, creator of the game Yunval. Today in this video I'm going to try to demonstrate for you guys a game between two players. So first off, we'll start with the deck. Again, you can use the game box right out of the box and you can be good to go. Just remove the rule cards. I already have the deck shuffled. That'll be all cards from the first set. All players will use cards from the same deck, whether it's 2 or 6 players. They all draw from the same deck. To begin the game, players will decide who will go first. We'll pretend this is player 1, 4, player 2, 2. Player 1 will go first. Each player is dealt a hand of 5 cards. And then each player gets to look at their hands and decide what cards they want to keep and cards that they don't want to keep. They'll all at once add to the bottom of the deck and then redraw the same number of cards. In this case, I think we'll go ahead and add the extra Architect and Mandrake back to the deck. Again, this information is hidden to the other players, so we'll go ahead. Any order you like, put it back to the bottom. And I'll draw 2 to replace the 2 we had. Let's see what we got. Ah, much better. Warlock and the big cheese. We'll get much more utility out of that. Set that aside for player 1. Player 2 will do the same. Look at the hand. And they'll be doing this at the same time. Actually, player 2's hand's pretty good. We'll just go ahead and add the Bane back. Then draw. There we go. Much better hand. So, player 1 will go first. And the first turn player will not draw any cards at the beginning of their turn. So we'll begin with a play action. So in the game, any of these cards only require 1 play action. And we get 1 play action during our own turns. But some cards, like Big Cheese in particular, will have an extra cost effect. So we use our 1 play action in order to play it, but then we also have to fulfill the cost, in which it says discard 1 card. So if we were to play Big Cheese, for example, we'll put it on our field, and then we'll have to use our 1 play action for a turn, and then discard a card from our hand. We'll go ahead and do that since Big Cheese is a pretty solid start to play. And we'll go ahead and discard the Fire Pixie. Now each player has their own discard pile, or graveyard. So we'll go ahead and put ours here. Our units will have fatigue, meaning that they will not be able to attack on the first turn that they're brought in. They can do anything else. However, in this case, there's no other actions Big Cheese can do, and that we don't have the option to do. And the other cards in our hand don't have any other functions. So our turn is done, and we'll pass it on to player 2. Player 2 will get to be able to draw a card. Starting there. Okay. We have a Sentinel, a Hellion. We know that our opponent's Big Cheese is a dice plus a 3. It also has the effect that is immune to unit effects. That includes our own. Player 2, if he had removal, wouldn't be able to target Big Cheese. So player 2 will have to play around it. So let's see what we can do here. I think Sentinel will be a good start for player 2. So player 2 will play Sentinel, which has the ability to revive whenever it's KO'd. And Sentinel as well has fatigue, so Sentinel won't be able to attack. I'll go back to player 1. Player 1 will now be able to draw a card. We'll draw a Golem. Player 2 will decide to, or player 1 I mean, sorry. We'll go ahead and play an Architect. Architect's effect will make its X, and its BP area, 0 plus X, into 2 times the number of cards in our hand. We'll go ahead and play Architect in our field. We have 3 cards in hand, so Architect's X will be equal to 6. The other effect of Architect is when we get direct attacked successfully, we may lose 2 stars from our star bank, and then we'll draw 1 card. It has an asterisk at the end of the effect, which means that we can activate that during any player's turn. However, our Architect still has fatigue, because it just got brought in. Our Big Cheese does not. We'll go ahead and have Big Cheese attack player 2. Now Big Cheese isn't targeting the enemy unit of player 2. Instead, we're targeting player 2 directly. Now player 2 gets a chance to respond. Player 2 will decide, for our demonstration, to block Big Cheese with their Sentinel. Big Cheese is a dice plus 3. Sentinel is a base stat of 4. Player 1 for Big Cheese will have to roll 1 dice for the dice icon up here. And so whatever the result of the 6-sided die roll plus the 3 will be Big Cheese's BP for this battle. So player 1 will go ahead and roll a dice, and it's only a 1. So Big Cheese will be a 1 plus 3. It'll be a 4. So Big Cheese's BP now is 4, and Sentinel's BP is 4. They're combating each other because Sentinel is blocking Big Cheese. When the stats are both the same, when the BP is the same value, they'll both knock each other out, meaning they'll be flipped face down, and no stars will be awarded and nothing further happens. Player 1 cannot do any other actions, so player 1 now pass play onto player 2. Player 2 begins their turn with drawing a card. Draw a Shepherdess. And then, the next step that you must do, when applicable, is you got to revive all of your KO'd and resting guys into refreshed, which is face up and upright. Player 2 will look at their hand and decide what to do next. Player 2 will go ahead and play Enforcer. Enforcer also has an X effect, similar to Architect. Enforcer's X is equal to 2 times the dice icons on one enemy that it's blocking. You can also tribute it, which is, in other words, sacrificing it while it's in play on the field to have enemies lose all their effects until your next turn. This can be particularly useful if our enemies have really strong abilities. So player 2 will go ahead and play Enforcer. Enforcer again will have fatigue and will be unable to attack. Our Sentinel, however, no longer has fatigue and can attack player 1. Bear in mind, however, that player 1's Architect is X is 0 plus X, and X is equal to 2 times the number of cards in their hand. Player 1 has 3 cards in their hand, meaning Architect's current BP without variable, no dice rolls, would be 6. Sentinel is only at 4. Sentinel attacking wouldn't really normally achieve anything. However, for the sake of demonstration, we'll go ahead and have Sentinel attack anyways. Sentinel will go ahead and attack, and choose to attack player 1. Player 1 gets a chance to respond. Player 1 chooses, since it's certain victory, to block with Architect. Architect's BP is 6. Sentinel's is 4. There's no dice rolls out to be done. Sentinel will lose the battle. So when Sentinel will lose the battle, player 1 will be awarded stars. The stars that are awarded to player 1 are equal to the golden stars, or the star value, of the card that was defeated. Sentinel's star value is 2. So we'll use these dice to indicate that. So player 1 now has 2 stars in their star bank. You need 50 stars total, which is a combination of your own star bank's stars plus any face-up, whether it's resting or refreshed, but not KO'd, star value, combination of 50 to win the game. You win instantly when you meet this requirement. So currently player 1 has a star score, which is a combination of these two, of 3. Star bank only has 2. Then proceed to resolve the rest of the battle. Sentinel is KO'd and put down like this. However, Sentinel has a special ability. Only once until player 2's next turn. When this is KO'd, it is revived immediately. And it would have a stipulation that it cannot attack during that turn. So, they activate the ability. Sentinel will revive itself immediately. It won't be able to attack anymore, though. Player 2 has no further actions they can conduct. They pass play on to player 1 again. Player 1 begins their turn, drawing a card, adding a warlock. Then, they revive all of their units. Player 1 looks at their hand and decides what they'll do next. Player 1 will decide to go ahead and discard Warlock and Mandrake to satisfy the cost of Golem. Golem's cost is to discard 2 cards. These will be discarded from your own hand. So, you have the 1 play action for your turn. You need to satisfy the cost of discarding 2 cards. We'll go ahead and discard the Warlock and the Mandrake to our graveyard. Then we'll play Golem. Now Golem is a dice plus 4 for its BP. The star value is 3. It also has an effect. While Golem is resting, meaning it's like this, it can block an extra time, but only once until your next turn. This is particularly useful because it can enable Golem to block potentially 2 times rather than just once, or you can attack with him and then still get a block potentially before your next turn begins. Golem, however, does have fatigue, so it will not be able to attack during this turn. Architect no longer has fatigue, and Big Cheese, of course, has no fatigue. These two may attack if player 1 wishes. Player 1 will go ahead and attack with Big Cheese. Player 2 can choose to respond by blocking with either Enforcer or Sentinel. Player 2 will go ahead and block with Enforcer. Enforcer's X becomes equal to 2 times the number of dice icons and an enemy that it is blocking. Big Cheese has 1 dice icon. Enforcer gains plus 2 BP. It'll be a 4 plus 2, it'll be a 6 BP. Now Big Cheese must roll for the 1 dice icon it has to figure what the BP calculation will be. So go ahead and roll. It'll be a 5. So Big Cheese will be a 5 plus 3. It'll be an 8. 8 to Enforcer is 6. Big Cheese has more BP. Player 1 would be the winner. Enforcer will be KO'd. Player 1 will be awarded 2 stars because Enforcer's star value is 2. Enforcer will go ahead and be KO'd, and player 1 will gain 2 more stars to the star bank. Player 1 proceeds to attack again. They'll decide to attack with Architect this time. For sake of demonstration, normally you wouldn't do this, because Architect only has 2 BP, because there's only 1 card in your hand. Its effect was 0 plus X, X equals 2 times the number of cards in your hand. Clearly, player 2 has a stronger blocker. Player 2 still has a 4 BP Sentinel refreshed, meaning that it can have the option to block. Player 2 will decide to block Architect's attack. Now they compare BP. Architect is a 2, and Sentinel is a 4. Sentinel wins the battle as a blocker. Architect will be KO'd, and player 2 will instead gain the star value of the defeated attacking unit. Architect is worth 1 star. It'll be KO'd. And player 2 will gain a star. Player 1 cannot do any more actions and cannot play any more cards from their hand, and they have no more effects to activate, and they choose to go ahead and pass play to player 2. Player 2 begin their turn, drawing a card, draw a spider, add it to the hand. Then the next step, player 2 will revive all of their units, like so. And player 2 look at their hand and decide what they'll do. Player 2 has a spider, shepherdess, Elion, genie, game gizmo, and potioner. Player 2 will go ahead and play spider. Using our 1 play action for the turn, go ahead and play spider. Spider has the ability that when it's played, rest 1 enemy. That enemy cannot be revived. This effect of spider is active until this is KO'd. In addition, with the rules in the game with how effects go, if a card leaves the field, unless if it's a lingering effect, which will be specified in the PDF that comes with the game to explain how that works in more detail, or if this is destroyed, meaning it leaves the field in that way as well, that also will cause the effect to vanish. However, we'll proceed with playing spider. Player 2 chooses to use spider's effect to force one of the opponent's units to exhaust or rest, and it'll target golem. We'll use these tokens to indicate this. Golem is now locked down and will not be able to revive. Player 2 then proceeds to decide to attack. Also bear in mind that you do not have to do these things in the exact order that I am doing them. The only exception is you must draw a card first, you need to turn, and then secondly, you must revive all of your things in that particular order. Afterwards, you can play, attack, activate effects in any order you want. You could use effects, you could attack, then you could sacrifice or tribute someone, then you could activate some of their abilities, you could attack, you can do things in any order beyond simply the drawing a card first, then reviving everything second. Player 2 will decide to attack. Since player 1's only blocker would be Golem, because of Golem's special ability to allow it to attack 1 more time while it's resting. Player 2 will go ahead and attack with Sentinel. Sentinel is a 4, and it will be targeting player 1. Player 1 decides to block with the Golem. Golem's special ability will allow it to do so, and Golem must roll a dice, plus its 4, will roll to figure out what the dice will equal. Roll 6-sided die, 5. It would be a 5 plus a 4, Golem would be a 9, blocking for this battle. Sentinel will be defeated. Sentinel is worth 2 star value, indicated here. Player 1 will be awarded 2 stars to their star bank. Golem has defeated Sentinel. Sentinel will be KO'd. It will be put face down like this. However, Sentinel's effect activates. Again, Sentinel can revive itself when it's KO'd in such a manner. However, as a stipulation, it cannot attack after it does so. Now, we'll have Enforcer attack. Player 2 will have Enforcer attack player 1 directly. Enforcer does not have to check for BP. The only requirements to successfully direct attack an opponent is that they choose not to block it, and that the BP of the unit doing the attack is higher than 0. Enforcer meets these requirements. There are no variables that make its BP 0. It will be a successful direct attack. Now we'll process a successful direct attack. Enforcer's bonus is 2. The bonus is the number in the circle next to the name. What this means is that when a unit successfully direct attacks an opposing player, these will be additional stars given on top of the star check. The star check now will be processed And what you do is you reveal the top deck card, in this case the Valiant, and you check the star value. These will be the stars that you will be rewarded in addition to the bonus that you gain from a successful direct attack. So in this case, we'll have 3 bonus stars of the star value there, and the bonus of 2 here on Enforcer. 3 plus the 2 will be 5. So player 2, for their successful direct attack, will gain 5 extra stars. They'll go from 1 in their star bank to 6 stars in their star bank. Then the star check card is added to the bottom of the deck. Player 2 has just played Spider's turn. Spider has fatigue, meaning it cannot attack. Player 2 has no other actions that they can or wish to perform. They will pass play back to player 1. Player 1 will begin their turn and draw a card. Draw a genie. Add it to our hand. Then player 1 must revive all of their units. Player 1 will choose to play someone from their hand. And we'll go ahead and play the Warlock. Warlock's ability is that when it's played, up to 2 target enemies have no effects. This effect is active until this is KO'd. The wording on the last sentence is very similar to Spider. Again, if Warlock, in addition to what it requires that it gets KO'd to cancel its effect out, if it leaves play or the field in any way, or if its effect is cancelled out by some other effect, its entirety of its effect will vanish. In order to play Warlock, we must discard a card from our hand. We'll go ahead and discard the Genie, sending it to our graveyard. Then we meet the requirements. We have to use the 1 play action we have for this turn, and we'll play Warlock. With Warlock, we'll go ahead and use counters or tokens again to indicate who is going to stop the effects of. We'll go ahead and apply it to Spider, turning Spider's effect off, no longer affecting our Golem. And then we'll also target the opposing Sentinel, so Sentinel's effects are no longer applied either. Warlock can just come into play and still has fatigue, meaning it won't be able to attack, but our other 3 units for player 1 will be able to. Note that player 2 still has at least 2 blockers, while a little bit weaker in stats compared to the Big Cheese and the Golem. Player 1 can choose to go all out in attacking with these 3, or can hold back a little bit. We'll go ahead and not attack with Architect in particular, because we have no cards in our hand. So Architect 0 plus X is actually X would be 0, because we have no cards in our hand times 2, it'll still 0. So we'll go ahead and attack with Big Cheese. Big Cheese is a dice plus 3, and we'll be choosing to attack player 2 directly. Player 2 will choose to block Big Cheese with their Sentinel. Big Cheese will need to roll to determine what its BP is. It's a dice plus 3. So we'll roll. We have a 6 plus 3. Big Cheese will be a 9. Sentinel will stand no chance whatsoever. Sentinel will be KO'd. Again, player 1 will be awarded 2 stars, equal to the star value, of course. We'll go from having 6 stars in the star bank to 8. Then Sentinel will be KO'd, put face down like this. We'll keep the marker counter like that to indicate that Warlock is still negating the effects of Sentinel. Because Sentinel's effect is negated, it cannot activate to revive. Player 1 will now choose to attack with their Golem. Golem is a dice plus 4, and will be choosing to target player 2. Player 2 decides not to block. Golem will have to roll for the dice to ensure that it's not a 0. Statistically, with the field set up as it is, it's impossible for Golem to be a 0. So we'll go ahead and forego the rolling. But if there's any possibility, like say if Golem instead said dice minus 1, then there's a slim possibility that it could be a 0. If you roll, for example, a 1, and if it was a dice minus 1, it's possible you could get a 0 and the direct attack would fail. When a direct attack fails, nothing further happens. The unit simply is resting, and you do not do the star check or gain any of the stars equal to the bonus on the card. But in this case, Golem's direct attack will be successful, and Golem will directly attack player 2, and we'll go ahead and do the star check. The star check is a phantom with a star value of 1, so we'll gain 1 star off of that for player 1. And the bonus of Golem is 1. Not very many stars are rewarded for this battle, but every little bit will count. So Golem's bonus of 1, plus the star value of the star check card is 1, we'll get 2 stars to our star bank. We'll go from 8 stars to 10 in the star bank. Player 1 decides to pass their turn onto player 2. We'll go ahead and add that star check card to the bottom. Player 2 will begin their turn. We'll draw a card. We'll draw a Forger. Add Forger to our hand. Revive all of our KO'd units. We'll see what player 2 will do. We'll go ahead and discard the Hellion, and apologies, the Hellion and the Potioner to our graveyard, or discard pile, whichever you prefer, and we'll play the Forger. The Forger will use our 1 play action, and we have fulfilled its cost of discarding 2 cards from our hand. It is an 8 BP, 3 star value, 1 bonus. Its effect is particularly important. For each card that you draw 1 card, then discard 1 card. This effect does not trigger itself. What this simply means is every time we draw a card, we'll draw an extra one, and then we get to choose to discard a card from our hand. We'll go ahead and play the Forger. Set our hand down over here. Forger will have fatigue, so it won't be able to attack during this turn, but our other 3 units will be able to proceed to attack. We know that, in player 2's case, we know that player 1's Architect is a 0 BP right now, because they have no hand, and Warlock is a 5. If we defeat Warlock by player 1 deciding to block with Warlock, Warlock's effect will vanish, and our Sentinel and Spider will no longer have their effects negated. But because Spider's effect was already negated prior, it will still become basically a vanilla. It won't have any abilities still, because the effect has been turned off. We'll go ahead and attack with Enforcer. Player 2 will choose to have Enforcer direct attack player 1. Player 1 will choose to respond. Player 1 will go ahead and block with their Architect. Architect will lose the battle, but it is better than allowing Enforcer to successfully direct attack player 1, because Enforcer has a bonus of 2. At the minimum, every card has 1 star value. If player 1 had let the attack through, it would have guaranteedly at least resulted in player 2 getting 3 stars. But by letting player 2 defeat the Architect, Architect is only worth 1 star. So player 2 will only be getting 1 star for this battle, rather than a minimum of 3 if the attack was allowed to go through. Architect will be KO'd. Player 2 will win the battle and gain 1 extra star to their star bank, going from 6 in the star bank to 7. Player 2, seeing that if they have the possibility, they could defeat Warlock and break the effect. However, remember, Golem's still effective. This effect is still active, where it can block once while it's resting. And the Golem is a dice plus 4. A very strong potential blocker. Player 2 will decide to hold back and not attack. Player 2 will pass their turn on to player 1. Player 1 will begin their turn by drawing a card and get a Fire Pixie. We'll go ahead and play the Fire Pixie after we, of course, first revive everything. Play the Fire Pixie here. Fire Pixie's effect is that enemies lose 1 BP while blocking an ally's attack. So if one of our other allies here, other ally units, were to attack player 2, and player 2 decides to block with anything, because of Fire Pixie's ability, they'll suffer a -1 BP penalty for that battle. Fire Pixie has fatigue, meaning Fire Pixie cannot attack during this turn. The other 4 units can attack. Player 2 has only 1 unit that is resting, meaning it cannot have the option to block. Has a 4 BP Sentinel, a 1 dice icon or dice roll spider, and an 8 BP Forager. This will be a slightly difficult decision to make. Player 1 will decide to attack with Golem first. Golem has a bonus of 1, and it has a dice +4. You can figure on average a dice will be around 3 to 4 in value. That's pretty close to Forager's value, or Forager's BP. But note that Forager also has 3-star value. If the player 1 was attacking and player 2 decided to block with Forager, and the block failed, player 1 would get 3 stars. However, note that player 1's Golem only has a bonus of 1. At a minimum, if the attack is allowed to go through, player 1 will get 2 stars, potentially more. Player 2 decides to let the attack of Golem through. Golem will have more than 0 BP, so the attack will be a successful direct attack, and Golem will add 1 star to the star bank of player 1, plus the star checked card's star value, which is 3. Player 1 will gain 4 extra stars to their star bank. Player 1 decides to proceed with attacking, and decides to attack with their Big Cheese. Big Cheese also has a bonus of 1. Player 2 again decides to let the attack through. Big Cheese with a bonus of 1 will add 1 star, if victorious, to player 1's star bank. There's no way that Big Cheese can have a BP of 0, so the attack is considered a successful direct attack. Do a star check. 2 from Bane. Which will add 2 stars to the star bank of player 1. Plus the bonus of 1 from Big Cheese will be 3. Player 1 will decide to stop attacking. Player 1 will pass the turn on to player 2. And for the sake of the length of the video, we'll end it here. The game continues until one of the players, however many, if it's 2 or 6, gets to 50 stars immediately, they will win. Currently, player 1 has, 17 stars in the star bank, plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Player 1 has 27 stars. A little over halfway there to winning. Player 2, on the other hand, has only 7 stars in the star bank, and the value of the star value of the face-up units is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16. Player 2 is falling down a little bit here. Normally the plays would be more optimized. If you look at player 2, they had Shepherdess, pretty strong card, Genie, and Game Gizmo is also fairly strong. More optimal playing, player 2 probably would be much closer to player 1 in star score. But the game would continue until one of them reached 50. This is approximately turn 5. since each player has about 4 or 5 units out. And normally the game goes until about turn 7 to 8. So the game, even though player 1 is only a little over halfway there, the game accelerates really quickly once we get to turn 6 to 8. So the game may have ended with player 1 winning, but it's possible player 2 could have turned things around as well. But for the sake of keeping the video a little short, we're going to end it here. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment in the comment section. And thank you for watching the game for Clash Yunval.